Hi guys, the Kickstarter for my comic, or the hardcover printing of it, has started about a week ago, and I have been so swamped with work, basically had no time for video making, but I knew this would happen, so ages ago I recorded one of the illustrations that are now in the back of the book, and I did this like almost a year ago. I saved that recording for basically this, so that I would have something to do a video with when I know I would be super busy and kind of stressed out. I am drawing so many sketchbook plates right now, you have no idea. I've done like over 200 in the last week, and yeah, gonna keep doing that while also drawing more comic pages as normal. But for this week I'm having a Q&A session, because those are easy to make and I haven't had one in like a year at least, so let's get into it. I asked for questions on social media, and here we go with them. These aren't really in any kind of specific order or arrangement, so let's see. Question number 1 is what motivated you to put your stories into the world, and what was your driving force? Honestly, that is the driving force in itself, putting my stories out into the world, because I just want people to read them, in this case in comic format, but you know, I guess any format could have sufficed before I got into comics, because I've always enjoyed coming up with really stupid stories when I was a kid, and I like drawing little illustrations to go with them, like animals going on adventures and stuff like that, like really childish literal children doodles next to them kind of things. And I liked giving them to my friends or family as little pamphlets that I used stapled together. Not even stapled, I did like little stitching in the back of the book as in 4 pages of copy paper stitched together by a 8-year-old. But yeah, I like doing that, just illustrating quote-unquote stories quote-unquote and having other people read them, because people tended to smile a little bit, you know, they were kind of funny and silly, and you know, I enjoyed that a lot, and I still do, and that's really why. And that's why my comics are webcomics, like I let people read them for free. Primarily, I would never want to move to a situation in my life where they are not available for free, like you would only be able to buy them as books or something, or have to pay for an ebook, because the whole point is that I want people to read them, and I like also being able to make money and live off of it. But if I had to choose between the two, people reading them is more important to me. So that's what I like, people reading my stories, and that was my driving force for making comics, I suppose. Alright, question number 2. A silly question for the video. What is your favorite colors? Right now I would say white and a light mint. I really like those 2 colors. Ask me again in a year and I'm sure it will be different colors. They always they change. I don't have one that's been with me for my whole life as a favorite color. The next one, have you done other comics before the current one? If so, where can you read them? Yes, my previous comic, the one that actually, I guess you could say, launched my career, was my last webcomic called A Red Tail Stream. It's my first properly finished, proper comic, you know, that wasn't done as a child, that I never finished and it looks like garbage and is like 10 pages long. So it's called A Red Tail Stream. I think you can find it and read it online by just googling that. And yeah. Alright, this next question is a very interesting, like Kickstarter, Indiegogo, crowdfunding business type of question, which I think a lot of people who are thinking of making similar things for their comics or art books or whatever is maybe gonna benefit from. And this question, it looks like the Kickstarter might get like close to 1000% funded, which is incredible. Without stretch goals eating into that profit, how does it get divided up? Is most of that bonus money gonna go to you just as income? Do the weird finish laws prevent you from accepting that crowdfunding? It's just a big difference from your original funding goal. I would love to know where it goes. Alright, so yes, a lot of the, or most of the profit is gonna go to me, but the thing is that most of the money that you see as the number goes up is not profit, because for every person who basically buys a book through the Kickstarter, there's still all of the fees for everyone. Like Kickstarter takes its cut. All the shipping cost you see in the total is obviously not gonna go to me, it goes to a shipping company. The book printing cost for everyone, packing, fulfillment, business, people take a cut or a flat fee, like a few bucks per each, and taxes and everything, like sales tax has to be paid. And in the end, judging for how it went with the last Kickstarter for book 2, in the end I got like 10% of the whole total ended up being profit that I got, and I got it like 2 years after the fact once everything else had been paid. And most likely it will be kind of similar for this one. So for interest, the things that are gonna be paid for by the Kickstarter before I get profit is gonna be, number one, 10% goes directly to Kickstarter just for existing. Then the big one is shipping cost, since such a big amount of the books are gonna be shipped internationally, and anyone who buys books internationally knows how much it costs. It's like almost $30 per book, so it's I think it's gonna be like 20-25% of the whole total is just gonna be shipping cost. So now we're up to like 35% going just to that. Then it's the book printing cost, which is what the whole Kickstarter is for, to cover the printing costs. And we're obviously printing with Typeworks, the publisher. We're printing all the books that go to the Kickstarter, which is looking to be like 3,000 plus books of book 3, but we also want to print books for the store to have for a couple of years, like we did with book 2. So it's gonna be like double the amount of books, so it might be another 3,000 books to be paid for. And book 2 is running out because so many people wanted the full set of all 3 of them, and we only had like 1,500 left in stock from the last printing of book 2, the 6,000 books batch. And now we're gonna run out of those, and we're gonna use some of the money from the Kickstarter to pay for a new printing of that. And I think we have enough of book 1 to not need to reprint just yet, but even those are gonna need a reprinting soon, and some of the Kickstarter money is gonna be saved to pay for that printing also. And there's always thousands of books at a time, so that's always a big chunk. It might be another 20%, I don't know actually, it could be more, that goes just for printing books right now. So now we're up to like 55%, are we? Or 60%, something like that. Let's say 55, keep it on the lower optimistic side. Then another costs are BackerKit is a program that's used for handling all of the addresses and stuff after the Kickstarter for the fulfillment service. They take 1% of the total. The people who package and send out the books, which is a company that Typeworks is contracting, paying for them, warehousing the books and everything, they take a flat fee per package. I think it's like $2 or something per each, I don't know. But it's a pretty significant amount. It's like, I don't know, more than 5% of the total of one book tier, So that's like 6% total if we add those up, and then we have to pay for the stickers and stuff, like the bonus things, a few percent of that, and other surprise fees. Oh, we have to pay for the book plates. They cost some money. We might add a total 1% in the end. I have like 1,000 of those. So now we have another 10%. We're up to like 70% of the money just gone for everything like that. And then we have sales taxes. I don't know. I think they're pretty low where Hiveworks have their thing. I don't think it's a lot, but they have to pay those. And then what's left is basically the profit, and it's gonna be divided up between me and Hiveworks. And I think I get a bigger cut than Hiveworks. I don't remember how it was exactly, but yeah, in the end, I might get anywhere between, I guess, 10%, 15%, maybe even 20%, depending on how much shipping and printing really costs. Those are the big two that is gonna eat most of the money. But I mean, technically, if something becomes catastrophically wrong, the profit could be 0. I mean, that happens. Suddenly shipping costs double, or a warehouse burns accidentally half the books and they have to be replaced. Never heard about that happening, but it's possible. So there's like no guarantee, obviously, that there's any profit. But everything went well last time, and I am carefully counting on and expecting, well, not counting on, never count on profit or money that you have not yet gotten. Number 1 rule in any business, never count on money. But I'm carefully expecting maybe 10% of the total in a couple years when everything has been paid for. Alright, here's a pretty several time asked question. It's about backgrounds, and one of the questions go, your backgrounds are so chef's kiss, beautiful and free. Are there any tips and tricks on how to make backgrounds like that? And the other questions were like, how do you get variety in your backgrounds and make them more interesting than just a plain forest with just trees? Like, how do you do that? And I think I need to make a proper how to make interesting backgrounds for comics or illustrations or whatever video properly in the future, because I don't have any short, sweet tips and tricks that I can just give out that would be helpful. I think you need more like, 20 minutes to properly like illustrate and show different cool things to do. But it's gonna be things like pretending that I have a camera and I'm moving it around from different angles, like pretending that I have wings and I can fly up to the top or to the side or wherever, and placing different objects in there to make it more interesting, and tilting things and breaking things, and instead of just having a nice lush forest, just throw some rocks and boulders and fallen trees or a rotting tree and stuff like that into it. But as I said, this really needs its own video where I can like show visualizations and examples of things I like to do when I realize that I'm like drawing the same background over and over again and same angle, and it's kinda isn't that interesting. And it is a very tricky thing. Sometimes I run into problems where I'm like, I need a really big background in this panel and I can't think of anything interesting to draw, and then honestly I'm really disappointed with the result. Happens sometimes, or pretty often even, but I do have some things that I can share in another video when I make one. But that is in the plans, a backgrounds tips video. Alright, next question is, your style is very interesting. My style, I feel, is a bit of a messy stage. Was your art style in the beginning vastly different to your art style now as you progressed? Messier or cleaner, or a completely different look? And do you have any artists and styles you draw inspiration from? Yes, I have had very different styles over the years, both in comics and before I really got into doing comics. I was doing more, like, honestly, I started out learning drawing and painting properly from more of an illustration kind of perspective. Like, I loved fantasy illustration, and I was striving for the kind that's very colorful but almost photorealistic. I did not have any kind of line art. I had they were very painterly, like heavy on background and like a very detailed focal point, which was usually some sort of animal or a dragon or a griffin or something. And yeah, that was obviously a very different art style from my comic art style. Kind of similar to, you know, what I'm doing with this painting in the background here. I don't have a line art for the big old creature there. So, you know, that's a very different art style that I basically pursued for many years in around like age 20. And then I got into making more comics, and I started drawing my line art with, you know, pen on paper regularly. So I got a specific kind of style from doing it traditionally, and then I tried to move to digital, and I kind of struggled every now and then, and you know, my art style reflected that. And even nowadays it keeps fluctuating, you know, year from year my style changes depending on what I like that year. And sometimes people complain that oh, you change your art style again, I hate your new art style, I like the one that you had in the comic between pages 620 and 800, and I wish you would go back to that art style. And I'm just like, I'm sorry, I like this art style right now and I don't want to change. So yeah, my style keeps still changing, but maybe 1 year or at one stage in my life I will actually settle for like one art style, and that will be it. But no, don't worry about if you're wanting to change your art style or anything like that, because there's plenty of time to do it, and you can do it several times, and it will probably even happen without you trying to do it. Alright, next question. Can you share your time managing process, please? Sure, I guess this is another thing that I can make a proper longer video going more in depth about it. I think that will be pretty interesting. But the basics would be my time management process is very crude. I don't have like planners or really schedules or anything. But what I do is I focus on one thing per day. And that's like the thing that I focus on, because for example, I decided today is the day when I ink these 2 pages, and that's it. And that's like the main thing. I might have little life tasks that like going to the grocery store or I don't know, cleaning the yard or something, as I'll do them if I have time, but the main task that I have decided on is the only thing that I'm really focusing on. Because the thing is, if I try to do something for, let's say I do 2 hours of inking, then I do 1 hour of going to the grocery store and the bank, and then I do some exercise, and then I eat, and then I do a little bit of coloring for 3 hours, like that kind of slotting of things and tasks doesn't work for me, because you know, I need to get into the zone of things where I focus really hard on my work, and it takes me a while to get into it. Like I'm really slow at drawing when I wake up and try to get into the drawing stuff, and then I get faster the more I get into it, and I'm working the hardest really and most intense as nights falls and it's like midnight, and I just keep working for the next 6 hours, barely even taking breaks. So that's what works for me. Anytime I stop to do something else, my focus breaks, and it takes me another half an hour at least to get into it. So that kind of working doesn't work for me. I just have to decide my one thing for the day, and that's it. And you know, then I collect like my life things for one day of the week when I do all of my life things. Like one day I just don't work on a comic, I do gardening, going to the store, cleaning, checking the mail, paying bills, you know, all those kind of things, going to the studio, checking on stuff, just on their own one day when I collect all of the other things that I need to do. And when I draw the comic, that's all I do that day. Alright, another popular question was about how I came up with the story or characters for Stand Still, Stay Silent. And that one I actually already have a video for, which is called something like How I Came Up with the Story for My Comic, I think. If I remember, I'll try to link it in the thingamadoo below, but if I don't remember, I think you can find it by googling that maybe. It's one of my older videos, so if you scroll all the way down of my videos, I mean, I don't have that many, I think I have like 50, you should be able to find it. And yeah, I think it's a pretty long video. I think I answered a fair amount of those questions in it, and I think you guys who are curious about it are gonna find that very helpful. But in short, I guess the question of how I came up with the story in the beginning was it was like year 2010, somewhere around that. I was like 19 maybe 2009, and I was really into post-apocalyptic stories, and I think they were really popular back then. Like there was a boom of all kinds of post-apocalyptic movies and end of the world books and whatever, and I was really enjoying them. And at some point I was thinking like, I really wish somebody would make one of these that's set in the Nordics, you know, areas that I'm more familiar with, and in a setting that isn't the big metropolises of the world, you know, just the quiet woodlands and small towns of the Nordics. I would really enjoy that. I wish somebody would do that. And you know, one of my philosophies of my life, I guess, is that when I think I wish somebody would do something, that's cue for me to do something, whatever it is that I'm wishing somebody would do. And I decided that I'm gonna make my Nordic post-apocalyptic story, and I'm gonna make it exactly as I want it. And I did not care if anybody would want to read it. I was not thinking about you know, being a comic artist. Actually, I thought it wouldn't be that popular because it's such a niche setting, I felt like. So yeah, I was very happily surprised that people enjoyed my comic. But yeah, I mostly just made it for myself, something I wanted to exist, and I decided to make it exist. Alright, next question was, what was your dream job as a kid versus now? I had no dream job as a kid. I mean, maybe when I was really young, apparently I told my parents that I really want to be a dog trainer because I really loved my grandmother's little dog, little Skine Terrier, and you know, I don't even remember that myself, but you know, maybe I had silly things like that when I was a kid. But as far as I can remember, you know, being in school and stuff, I never really had a dream job, and that became really distressing as I got older. You know, you needed to start actually thinking about where you're going with your life around 15 over here in Finland. You have to kind of start choosing your school path. Are you going into the trades, or are you going more into university, and which career path are you going? And I was like, oh, I don't know what I want to do. I'm not passionate about anything. Like, I'm enjoying drawing, but I didn't think of that as any kind of career you could do. I didn't even know if I wanted to, if you could, because drawing for other people, blah. And yeah, I was really like immensely stressed out, and like got a lot of anxiety from that fact for a very long time. And eventually I basically just, one of my teachers recommended that, oh, maybe you want to go into the graphics design line in you know, the industrial arts school in Helsinki. And I was like, okay. And I went home and I googled what the graphics design line meant, and it was like, oh, you can become a package designer and work on like business graphics and maybe even illustrators and stuff like that. And I was like, okay, yeah, I guess I go there. I had no better ideas, and there I ended up realizing that I really do not enjoy working for clients, even though I do kind of enjoy graphics design. It turned out to be pretty cool, and I found my passion for doing comics when I was there. and realized that this is what I want to do, and that is what is my dream job now. I got a passion for it within like the span of a year, and it is still my passion. I want to do comics on the internet for, if I can, the rest of my life. I want to like have a lot of stories that I want to tell, and once this one is over, I'm gonna start the next one, and we'll just go from there. Yeah, I have I'm so pleased with where I am with my career right now. I don't want to have a different one. So yeah, no dream job, and now I have my dream job that I just came up with when I was like early 20s. Next question is, I remember you mentioning in the video too that you pray, and I was wondering what your religion is. Just regular old Christian, nothing more cool than that. Yeah, I try to pray every evening. I mean, when I was a kid, I was, I guess, a Christian, in that I was born into a family where my mom was a Christian, but I lost all of my faith when I was a teenager. I had a child's faith, which is very lovely, but it did not stand the realization of what the world looks like, and I lost all of my faith, and I was a bitter, kind of angry, typical atheist for way over a decade. So I basically, in the last couple of years, slowly managed to regain an actual faith, and I've learned how to pray in the evenings, and yeah, I try to keep up the habit. Just, do the basics, being thankful for what I do have and what I've been given, and mainly ask that I'm helped to not be so stressed out about things. And I get really worked up into planning for the future and what I'm gonna do and what I need to do and where I need to go, and 5-year plan and 10-year plan, and I need to, in the evenings, ask God to keep me on my path and not get so distracted with everything around me, and just not forget what's important in life, and just let my path take me where I'm supposed to go, rather than getting all worked up into the workings of the world. Another popular question was about how I pick my color palettes for each of the chapters, and do you have a pattern for picking the color palette of each chapter, or do you sort of just go with whatever you're feeling at the moment? Yes, I can have a pattern to them, in the sense that I obviously want to make sure that the color palette matches the mood of what's going to be happening. I mean, if it's going to be a really, really distressing, scary kind of setting, I need to kind of make sure that I'm not in happy pinks and stuff. But a lot of the time I just go also with what I like, which means sometimes you can kind of see that this year I really like these kind of colors, so all of the chapters kind of go with similar feeling colors, even if they might be different. But you might see that there's a lot more light pastels one year, and another year is a lot of black and dark colors, and like mixed into every palette, and other years I'm more in the bright colors, sometimes I'm more into almost grayish colors, and yeah, that's really just how I feel like going with colors that year. Sometimes I wish that I maybe planned them beforehand, years in advance, to make sure that over the whole span of the comic, in the end, I would be like, look at all these beautiful colors, they're perfectly balanced across the story, and kind of look uniform, and it's not like a different person chose the colors in this part and this part. But no, I'm just letting things go as far as my life goes, and it's gonna be reflected in the comic once it's all done. Kind of like my style fluctuating, like I'm letting that happen. I'm also letting the colors fluctuate. Question about the Kickstarter. Are the books only in English on the campaign? Yes, they are the regular English version. For those who don't know, there is a French version of the comic that's being published in France by a publisher called Achilleos. They have licensed the right to publish it, and obviously their books do not go through my Kickstarter, they go through themselves in the regular French market. And I think book 3 is coming out this August over there. I don't know anything more about that, but I've heard that they are like up for pre-order and stuff for bookstores already, so that's coming for French readers. Other than that, only English books available. Next question, how did you learn to paint and draw? Alright, let's see if we can do a really fast summarization. I started using the internet when I was a teenager, and I found artists who drew really cool stuff, but people who did like fantasy illustrations, and I liked Pokemon fan art back then when I was a kid. I loved Pokemon, one of the main reasons I got into drawing, honestly. And I was like, whoa, this is amazing, I want to draw like that. And I started like trying to copy the styles and amount of detail and the way people painted backgrounds and stuff of the different artists whose work I looked at. And of course it was very ugly and crude for the first few years when, you know, I was like 12, 13, 14, 15. But eventually just trying to basically copy the way better, not like straight up copy a picture, but like I would actually study their techniques for like drawing backgrounds and how they use colors and texture for rocks and trees and fur and feathers and like anatomy of animals, which I really should have reference from actually anatomy books, but no, I just reference it from other people's paintings, which meant that I copied their mistakes and added in my own. A lot of my otherwise pretty nice looking paintings from when I was younger, like under 20, kind of look really cool on the surface, but you can see that there's a lot of really weird and anatomical things going on between all of the details, because I was just looking at other people's paintings for stuff rather than actually looking at photos of anatomical stuff, you know. But yeah, that's how I learned, on the internet, looking at other better artists' works and analyzing them and trying to figure out why their art looked really cool and mine looked really scruffy and weird and overworked and horrible. Next question, do you have any tips on dealing with self-doubt? Let's see, I have kind of a thinking personally, I almost have more of a problem with getting too big of an ego, which I had a problem with even as a child when my art obviously looked like a child's drawings. I still had like an ego about it. So I don't know, I feel like I have the opposite problem. I have an ego, but then it's fragile and I get upset when I realize that something wasn't as good as I thought it was. But as far as self-doubt, I know, I guess you just have to do it, and one thing that can help is realizing that if you're drawing anything, like trying to start your own comic, and you're not a very good artist, like you're actually a really bad artist, and a proper professional artist would look at your art and be like, oh, I can't even help you, it's so bad, you need to study the basics, you know, which is always what you're told when you're really in the beginning stage. Just realize that if you put out your comic, 99% of the world does not draw any better than you and probably think that your drawing is kind of cool. They're like, hey, you can draw a rabbit, that's really cool. Oh, you're making a comic about a rabbit going on an adventure? I kind of want to draw a comic about rabbits going on an adventure, just putting it out there. But yeah, most people are worse artists than you or just the same, and you don't need to worry when you're starting out about better artists, you know, the 1%, people who have been drawing for more than 1 year, you know, looking at your stuff and being like, ooh, that's bad. Most likely most of them are looking at it and being like, oh, you're getting into drawing? Cool, work at it. I drew like that once, 15 years ago or 50 years ago, and just keep at it and you'll get better. And yeah, honestly, I do have self-doubt sometimes. Like a lot of times when I draw a comic page, I'm really disappointed with it, and I'm like, oh man, I don't have time to redraw because I need to do 4 pages a week. I really never redraw pages, and I just have to accept that sometimes I really hate them, and I'm like ashamed almost, because I know that there are other comic artists and artists who do read my stuff, and I'm like, oh, they're gonna see all the ugliness and the lazy background and everything, wonky faces and everything, and I've tried to fix some things but I can't do anything more. Then I just have to realize that most of my readers also do not look at my comic like that, and they are happy with the result even when I'm really disappointed with the comics, and they're still gonna enjoy it a lot. In fact, they will enjoy that wonky page more than if I said, hey, I need to not post a page today because I need to redraw this, and they're gonna be like, man, I want the page, I don't care if it's 50% worse than the other pages, I just want to read it. The art is like fine, I don't see any difference with it. A lot of times I don't see difference in when other artists fix their drawings and are like, oh my god, I can't believe I posted that other drawing and now I fixed it, and here's this side by side and I can see kind of what they've changed, but the original is like, I like it, I see nothing wrong with it, I almost sometimes even like it better than the other one, even if it has technically flaws. So what was I even answering here? I think I went into a weird tangent there, but whatever I was answering, I hope that answered it a little bit. Question: have you ever thought about what the main cast will look like as trolls, even though most of them are immune? I have not, and I don't really want to. I tried thinking about it when I read this comment, obviously, and I'm like, what? I don't know what to think about that. It either becomes like disturbing or comically disturbing, and I don't want to think about it. I'm literally seeing them shaped as like weird octopuses right now, and I don't want to see that in my mind, so I'm gonna stop thinking about it. Question: how long has Kitty been with you? Well, she was gotten from a shelter when she was estimated to be about 3 or 4 years old, and we settled on 3 years old, and she has been with me, she's like 16 now, so it's been 13 years. Is that math correct? Yes, it is. 13 years, and for a few years she lived with my parents because, I got her when I was 18, living with them still, and even though Kitty belonged to me technically, and I had to, take care of the cleaning her bathroom and everything like that, she was still, the whole family's cat. She loved everyone, my parents, and whoever was the one awake first, which was usually one of my parents, waking up at 6 instead of 7 in the morning, would be the one who would feed her. So, she loved everyone, and when I moved out first into a, just a rental apartment that was on like a floor, no backyard or anything. So we decided that she would stay with my parents because then she could stay where she had been already, in her home, with more people than just one. And there was always somebody home, she had a backyard and everything. But then a few years ago, I think like 4 now, my parents got a second dog who was an older, they like adopted an older female dog to go with their young puppy who got along great with my Kitty. And the older female dog did not get along with Kitty. She was scared of her, so she would show teeth, Kitty would hiss at them, and they tried to get it work for a year and it wasn't like that bad. But then they started renovating their home and they had to like move to a temporary housing situation for a while, and we figured Kitty's gonna be so stressed out having to be in a different place than home with one of the dogs that she doesn't even like, and she's not gonna have a yard. So we decided that she's gonna live with me from then on, which was a good decision because the place they had to move into, their renovation of course ended up taking like a whole year instead of a few months, and they had to live in this awful apartment, and the dogs apparently got really stressed and were just puking and diarrheaing in the middle of the night indoors and stuff. Even though they were able to, be taken for walks, but different place, other dogs, everything like that. So thankfully Kitty got to live with me over here with her backyard and everything, and yeah. Question: how did you find the motivation to keep drawing your comic whenever you didn't feel like doing it that day, especially back when you were drawing a rental stream and your income didn't depend on it? Love your art. Thank you. And well, honestly, I would say that when I was drawing a rental stream, I actually had an easier time finding motivation every day because I didn't have an income yet. And I know that sounds weird, but the thing is that when I realized that I could potentially in the future make an income, that's when I realized that this is what I want to do as a job, and it became priority number one for me to reach that goal. And when I started, I was in university. It was like the end of my first year, I think, I started a rental stream. Up until that, I was thinking like, oh, I'll just become a graphic designer and I'll endure that job to, work for clients, and I do like 1 page a week of some sort of comic, and I'm gonna just enjoy it as a hobby and not make any money from it, because I didn't know you could really do any money with webcomics. And what happened was I remember putting like one banner ad on my webcomic Arete stream, and it didn't have a lot of viewers or readers back then, obviously. And after that 1 month, I made $2 from posting like, 10 pages that month. And yeah, I was amazed because it was the first money I had ever made making comics, from my childhood and teenage silly comics. I obviously never made any kind of money in any way, shape or form. And I was like, wow, $2 just from making my comic this month? If I had 100 times more readers, I would have made $200. And with that, you can pay for like, as a frugally living one person, you can pay for your electricity, your internet, and your food for a whole month. And then all you need to pay for with other money is like rent. And if I live in a, teeny tiny studio apartment in a cheap part of some cheap town, that will be pretty easy to pay for with like graphic design work. And I was like, yeah, I want to do that. I want to put more effort into doing these comics, because I want to get to a point where maybe I get like $200 a month from it and don't need to do so much graphic design work. And as then the last 2 years of my university stuff progressed and I started making more money from the comic, eventually getting up to that 200 a month from getting more viewers and getting better at monetizing my stuff and researching how to make other kinds of income from comics, I realized that it's possible to even make all of the money I need if I get to a certain point. And that just lit a fire under my butt, or however you say it, to work even harder. And I worked really one could say too much back then. I worked like I would go to school 10 hours a day, but then I would work another 9 hours on the comic. Maybe not 10 hours a day. How much is it? From like 9 to 5? How much is that? 3 hours plus 5, that's like 8 hours. So then I would spend like 10 hours drawing afterwards in the evenings. And I would only sleep like 5 hours a night for those 2 years because I was just drawing into the night. And that's where I got my motivation. Just the possibility of graduating and not having to work with clients was really what motivated me. And obviously it worked out well. I always had the thought that it's not gonna really work out that well, and I'm still gonna have to be half-timing working on something, and I was fine with that. But the closer I got to that money goal, the more motivated I become. Nowadays I actually have the problem where I make money already. In fact, I passed the line where I make like a good middle class income in Finland, which is like 3,000 a month reliably, and I'm like, I don't have a goal anymore. In fact, I could easily live with less because I learned to live a very frugal lifestyle, and now like, man, I could do it half of this and be fine. And sometimes I'm feeling, down or lazy, and I'm like, I don't want to work 70 hours a week. I want to work 30 hours a week, and I could do it if I just stop doing my stupid comic and stuff like that go through my head, and I'm having a hard time motivating. But the way I've actually managed to work through that is that I have new goals in my mind, and like, I have my dream home in my mind that I want to be able to move into like in the next 5 years, and I need to save up a lot of money for that. So when I feel like that, I'm like, but think about your dream home. You're never gonna get it if you just live on your basic minimum. I need to save every month to be able to eventually, like, I want to have a lakeside forested lot where I can build a little cottage, and I want to be able to have a little rowing boat with a back motor so that I can go out fishing whenever I want, and I want to have a garden, and I want to have chickens, and I want to have just anything I want there, and I know that I can't get it if I don't keep working. So that's my new goal that I'm motivating myself with. I'm sure eventually, when I reach that, I will have to come up with some other goal, and who knows what that is gonna be. But yeah, always have a goal that you're working towards. That helps with motivation when the work itself isn't motivating, which is, I don't know, most times. I mean, it's just kind of work, drawing comics, Question: do you plan to do a collected version of the comic one day? Like all of Adventure 1 as one book? No, it would be really cool, and I would do if it was shorter, but the thing is that Adventure 1 is like way over 1,000 pages long, so it wouldn't work as a printed book. Aretha's Dream, I made it into one big book, and it was like 600 pages. And it still works, like the spine holds together well. And it's kind of tricky to read because it's so heavy, hard to keep in your lap and stuff. But it's a fun item. But imagine that book twice as big. The binding of the back would basically be collapsing on itself. There's kind of a limit how thick you can make the spine of a book related to the size of the book itself. Like that thick would not work out. The only other thing you can do with books that are over 1,000 pages long, which they exist, I have a couple of those, but the thing is they have really, really, really thin paper, like Bible type paper, and you can really only print black and white, because obviously otherwise the paper is too thin. It will start wrinkling and bleeding from the ink and bleed through. You can't really print color comics on that kind of paper that's thin enough. So the short answer is, would be cool, but no, it's not practical in any way, sense or shape or form. Alright, this video is getting pretty long, so let's wrap it up here. I'm sure I'll do more Q&A videos in the future, so if there's anything else you're wondering about, don't worry. And I will also do like longer videos about some of the questions people have been wondering about. The ones where you can't just give a 5-minute mini answer and be helpful. But I'll see you guys later. I hope you enjoyed this, and that's it. Bye.